So this practice is not so much about creating art as it is about allowing the flow of expression. And this is super, super important to note because, particularly as a recovering perfectionist, I would often think of the final product, and everything that I do then builds towards the final product rather than being in presence. So taking that element out, not thinking about the end result, but just thinking about where am I now, what wants to flow now, what's coming out of my hand, and not pre-planning what's going on the page, choosing my colors intuitively, moving my pen intuitively, and following that, just following flow means that I'm building the muscle that helps me lean into the unfolding, the process of discovery, taking chances, risking, if you will. And it's really lovely. And it's also helpful in terms of building that sense of grace towards myself, allowing myself to just be, not perfect, just be in the present, produce something, express yourself. And it's so, so beautiful. So it's not about making something good. It's about making something authentic. It's about making something that represents me in the now. And that in itself is building my capacity to just be present, to just be still, and to not judge myself, but to allow things to unfold and develop in a way that's just, interesting to observe. Is that what came up? That's really interesting. Oh, and that came up. I wouldn't have thought that would come up, but yeah. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that element of the practice. And I'm also noticing that regular practice in this way builds my creativity. So I'm actually coming up with more and more ideas in other areas simply because I'm training my creativity in this way. I love this one. Intuition lives in the quiet spaces. So life is super busy. It can get super, super intense. And in the process of us kind of like chopping and changing from one thing to another, very often I find we lose track of ourselves and our needs and wants because we're so consumed by everything else. And actually having a regular practice that slows everything down, brings everything into presence, is a beautiful way to find quiet, to still things. And when things get quieter and when things get more still, can feel what's going on inside. We can hear what's going on in the spirit and we can connect much better. So I do believe that's when we find our intuitive voice or direction more authentically and in a powerful way. So I love this practice because it brings everything right down, slows everything right down. And then I've found that my intuition is sharper now. I used to draw when I was a kid and I would draw for hours. I loved it. And reintroducing this practice into my life as an adult has been really interesting because I love it. And so what I find sometimes is I get my head into this, oh, I should do this, I should do that, I should do this, I should do that, all the shouldy things. And more often than not now, I kind of sit back and I go, wait, let me just test the should. And I question, what is in the should? Do I have to do it? Is it absolutely necessary? Will it make me happier? Will I enjoy it? Will it add value? And I've started to strip back things that really have nothing to do with me and are more about other people's expectations. I've started to strip them back and I'd rather doodle. So actually, I'm not going to go out and do that thing because I don't want to. What I want to do is something that just brings me a little bit of joy and pleasure. And so I just doodle. it's really silly, and it's really funny that doing something that you enjoy regularly gives you a better sense of what your enjoyment feels like, how you feel when you're enjoying yourself, and how that improves your overall well-being. I feel better. I feel better. And so I lean into the things that make me feel better far more. And I pull away from the things that are draining. So this isn't resourceful. I'm not going to do that. That is resourceful. So I'm going to do that. And it's a really simple thing, but it's been teaching me a lot about that. Every doodle is a series of questions unfolding on a page. It is not necessarily a search for answers, but it is a series of questions unfolding on a page. I say this in the sense that taking the page, I might select a color intuitively, feeling a little bit blue today. So I pick up a blue pen and then I start marking the page, and I'm intrigued by the shapes that are being made there. And I'm curious about, I love the way this blue looks, but I'm sensing I want another color. And then I'm curious about, how would the green look, and applying that. But then I'm seeing how the shapes are unfolding, and I'm now curious about what would it be like to play within the bigger shapes on the page. So I start coloring those in, or I start drawing circles into them, and then seeing how that plays out. And then I'm curious about what one section might look like. I think I might be seeing a face there. How can I pull out or tease out a face in that section of random scribbles, let's say? And it's just a series of questions and explorations. And it's fun because it takes me away from, again, that final outcome, and it keeps me in the now. It keeps me in play. It keeps me engaged, and it keeps me in the pleasure of the process. I love that. Just looking at how one thing relates to another and what might happen if I bring in another element. I feel like it's a really beautiful lesson for life as well, that kind of taking things step by step and being invested in each step and what might happen if you experiment a little bit. It's all about experimentation, a series of questions, not a concrete search for answers, but just the enjoyment of play and experimentation and exploration and what might happen. In this month, I set myself the constraint of working purely with my brand colors. And I was interested in what might happen with that artistic constraint. And what I found is just a constant pivoting. This sense of like when you're in a tight space and you can't necessarily run forward or run back, you use the movement that you have available to you. So that might just simply be pivoting round and round and round. And the interesting thing about that is every time you pivot, you get a new perspective on things. Every time you pivot, that new perspective gives you new ideas. Every time you pivot, there's a possibility for something else. And that's actually what came out of working with the constraint of just using the brand colors. It's this sense of, if this is all I have available to me, how much can I make of it by just slightly changing an angle? I loved it. One of the best things about this practice is its interpretive value. I am a wordy person. I think deeply, I speak and I use loads of words. And I wanted to move away from writing a journal. And this has become another form of journaling. And it's so beautiful to see how my emotions and my experiences are being interpreted through pen strokes. I never really know what's going to come out or what it's going to look like at the end, but it's just this interesting interpretations of what has been, you know, a day or a moment or a month. And it's another form of communication. So when I come back to the page, sometimes I look and I see things that I hadn't consciously thought of before. And so I think about my situations and the happenings in my life in a slightly different way. And it's released, you know, it's been released through my body, through this really flowy action or whatever. And so I've got an interpretation that communicates something to me, and I've had a process of release as well. And that has felt really valuable over the months. So I take my sketchbook with me almost everywhere. Almost everywhere. If I can fit it in my bag, it's coming with me. If I can get my pens in my bag, they're coming with me. And I love it because I never know what's going to go on the page. But as I'm kind of walking around or taking the tube or taking the bus or I'm in an Uber, I will kind of look up and something will catch my eye. And it's a shape or it's an image or it's a person or it's a smell. And then I'll get a sensation. I'm like, right, okay. And I've grabbed the book and a pen and I've started doodling. And I guess something about having these tools available to me has meant that I am more alert and tuned into my environment. And so I'm understanding and appreciating that the world is this really inspiring playground of ideas. There's just constant input, constant things to download from our environments. And so it's quite exciting from a creative standpoint, because sometimes you feel really stuck and you don't know what to do, or you don't know which direction to go. And you just kind of become aware that there are inspiring ideas everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And sometimes we don't know what they mean, and having a way of interpreting them that isn't direct. So just doing a doodle from something that you've seen sometimes helps your brain process information in different ways. So by the end of the doodle, you're like, I know now how to approach that issue. I'm going to do it like this. Or at least that's what I've been finding. Having a practice that is portable, I'm going to use that word, is so useful. This practice has been brilliant. As I said, I keep my pens and my book in my bag and I travel around with them. And so if I feel like I need to just release, or I need to connect, or I want to interpret or capture something, it's right there with me. So I guess what I've learned from this practice is having something available to us that is portable, that we can do in different spaces, that we can reach out for when we need it at any given point, is so useful. It may not be doodling for you. It may be something else, like breath work, obviously, something that we can do in most places. So just finding something that really helps you to attune, that you can do almost anywhere. Super. So October was a very interesting month in that I had run out of space in my existing sketchbook and I was waiting to get another one. And for various reasons, I was struggling to go to the shop and buy one. And then I fell into this space of just not doodling. And I think I was reading, I was doing other things. And I started to feel a bit guilty for not keeping up my practice. And I had to sit back from that and observe it. And I had to say to myself, we're not going to do this. You're not going to do the guilting and shaming of yourself for not doing this. And just allow yourself to take a break if that's what's going to happen. It just kind of unfolded that it was one week into the next, into another day, and I just wasn't doodling. And it was a really beautiful period of time where I could observe my relationship with um with guilting myself. You know, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. And it's like changing that internal language, you know, adjusting the voice, the tone of the voice, and just, you know, actually, when the time comes, you will find yourself a book and you'll start again. It's not a big deal. There is no should in this. There is just a could. And so it's a really lovely experience of learning to be gentler, more gentle with myself, and more gracious with myself. Because when the time comes, it will come and you'll do the thing. When I started this practice in February, I didn't really know where I was going with it. I just felt a need to do it. And I've been doing it regularly, sometimes, you know, a couple of times a day, but regularly showing up with my book and my pen and just sitting and drawing. And I'm learning so much from it. I didn't even think I would learn as much as I have, but I am. I'm learning so much, and it's been really interesting to see how it's become an integral part of my reflective practice. And it's strengthened my belief in just showing up, keep showing up, because something will reveal itself, even if in this moment it feels like whatever your practice is, whether it's yoga, whether it's TRE, whatever it is, feels like I'm not really sure what I'm getting from this, or what's coming out of it. Keep showing up, because it will reveal itself. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time, sometimes it's instant, but there is something about discipline, and there is something about carving out space and time for yourself and your well-being and your self-care, and your self-alignment. So just keep showing up. You will notice that this month's pictures, or images, are they're all following a very similar set of colors and tones. Basically, my marker set, they're running out. And I keep going online to buy some more and then stopping and being like, well, actually, what happens if you just use what's here? And it's so interesting because, again, it's that thing of making the most of what we have. And I'm finding that because I have that limitation, I am more creative, and I'm more curious about the relationships from one doodle to another, to another, to another, to another. They sort of start looking like a collection when they're in the same color scheme. But they present such different sides of the characters of my work, or my play, I should say. So I've been finding that really fascinating, this concept of maximizing the little. So I'm going to keep doing that till the pens run out and see what happens, because it's really exciting. And interestingly as well, it's that thing in life, isn't it, about whatever little we have, we try to make the most of it. And yeah, that's the lesson that I'm taking from this process right now of having pens that are running out, and slowly but surely getting down to just a few colors that I can use. I love it. So that is everything that I would like to share about my doodle practice that I started at the beginning of this year. It's almost a year of doodles that I've shared with you, and the little nuggets of learning that I've been picking up along the way. And I wanted to give you an invitation to do some doodling of your own. I'd love to see them if you'd like to share. But yeah, just see what comes up and see what it's like for you to park some time, some alone time in space, wherever you want to be, and just doodle. And not worry about what anybody else thinks about it. Just doodle, just doodle. I'll put some prompts at the bottom of the page just so that you can have some ideas about little constraints and rules that you can set yourself to support the work. But yeah, have a go, see how it is for you, and thank you for watching.